what does six-figure Bitcoin look like for the rest of the crypto market? What cryptos are still going to be in the top 10, and what cryptos are going to cease to exist? This is all going to play huge roles in the future of the crypto market. Welcome back, YouTube. Okay, so in this video, we're going to cover quite a few things, primarily talking about the bull run, when we can expect that to be, some of the hurdles, whether that be some of the macros, and what does this mean as far as for liquidity coming into the market and raising prices. So when it comes down to crypto specifically, a lot of the capital that comes into the market, a lot of things that kind of allude to the expression of rising tides raises all boats and stuff like that is going to be tied directly to the market leader, which is Bitcoin. We are 6 months away from the Bitcoin halving, where we'll roughly go. Make sure I say this on. So right now, this April 2024, we are going to go from 6.25 Bitcoins a block to 3.12. So literally a halving here. So this is going to pretty much just play into the supply and demand. There's going to be less Bitcoin being mined, and we all know even if the demand doesn't increase, for example, just simply maintaining the demand with less Bitcoin being on the market, that's going to push higher prices. This is one of the main catalysts to saying that, okay, well, six-figure Bitcoin and stuff like that is inevitable, even if we just maintain the current demand and the current buying pressure. It's just going to push the price higher, just simply because there's less coming on the market. But we know that typically when these prices go up, people are attracted to green candles. People start investing in crypto, and then it comes out, okay, Bitcoin's going up and I can't afford Bitcoin. What's an alternative? And that's how you start having this kind of like trickle down effect and start seeing the crypto market just literally just start rising as liquidity comes into the market. And one of the biggest hurdles people have been asking, saying that, is the macro is going to play an effect on that. And the answer is yes and no. The macros always have an effect because macros are going to be some of the bigger things as far as for like discretionary income, real estate, whether or not people are upside down in their houses, whether they can't afford a house, credit card debt, really just money going on, like the price of gas and stuff like that. That's all going to play a part. But what I believe has happened over the last couple of cycles is that people realize the importance of investing, and they've seen the power of being in the right position that happened on the last cycles or so. I do believe people are smarter now as well, so they're not going to be chasing like kind of like the flash in the pans and get taken advantage of, kind of like what happened last time. So I believe that people are going to put in more effort when it comes down to researching and doing their research, but they're also still going to be heavily interested in investing. So I believe what we kind of will see, and also with student loans coming back up to in the macro, that's going to be a big factor as well. But I do believe that we're still going to see a large percentage of people invest in this cycle. This is obviously starting in 2024. Historically, Bitcoin likes to start rising around the end of the year, November, but things change. But ultimately, that's when you'll start seeing like pretty much like the steep inclines and starts going up. But typically, you'll start seeing a trajectory. You'll start kind of seeing the price kind of stabilize and start trending upward. But ultimately, historically, yes, Bitcoin typically starts that ascend toward the end of the year. So if you're trying to be specific, you can say somewhere between April and November of next year, we should have pretty much hit our bottom. And I believe that even if something dramatic doesn't happen, or if we have an all out, like the bottom falls out of the real estate market or something like that, and when we retest some of those prices in the teens and stuff like that, consider yourself lucky. And I would certainly take advantage of that if we were to see those numbers again, because again, halving is coming up, and ultimately, again, we start that ascend next year. So if you are making any plans and stuff like that, as far as for acquisitions and stuff like that, this is a great thing to have in the back of your mind, saying that, okay, we have halving coming up in 6 months. And historically, the November of that halving year and stuff like that, you can typically expect a ascend. So make sure you're keeping that at the on top of your mind. What we're going to look at here, as far as for supply and demand, even when it comes down to things like Dogecoin, Ethereum, and all that kind of stuff, it's going to play into supply and demand more so on Dogecoin's end. Ethereum almost traces Bitcoin verbatim, but Dogecoin, we're going to have to look at the supply and demand and look at what happened last time in the bull run. Last time in the bull run, demand exceeded supply by, I think it went up like 16,000% overall. Demand exceeded supply. And what we have to look at is, now we have to look at the catalyst. What's for Doge? We have to look at, will the demand exceed supply again, and also the utility. And these are things that's going to be really supportive of Dogecoin over the long term. And Elon has been working on some things, and he's been, constantly saying that he's going to incorporate it while he's building out different businesses and stuff like that. And typically, you're able to get a lot more done during the hype of the market versus the bear market. So we can expect some news and probably some other things popping up around this time, because even when it comes down to utility and having these companies and partnerships and acceptance and stuff like that, you're way more likely to get these partnerships done and stuff like that when an company is watching the, pretty much like, I don't want to say the apex, but just watching the market kind of roar and stuff. You're going to be able to negotiate a lot better when there's positive things going on in the market versus, okay, should I accept this coin, and okay, it looks like it's spiraling right now. How long is this bear market going to last? If I take this and if I accept this for my product, and will it fall over the next 6 months or a year? Is the bull market going to last another 2 years? If I accept this coin, am I going to be in the red for 2 years and stuff? It's much easier, as we are still in like the infant stages really of crypto. It's much easier to have a few cycles under your belt so that you can really just negotiate when it comes down to establishing these partnerships. Because I think last time when we were, I think it was the McDonald's catalyst, and they came out with like I forget the purple thing's name. They came out with their own coin, basically. I don't know, I think maybe it was a meme, but we're trying to get that. But Elon said, if they accept Dogecoin, he'll eat a Big Mac or something like that. And they came up with their own coin, and it's just more so that just kind of revealed to me that there's still a part of these corporations that are like afraid of the unknown. And I think that once we have a few cycles and they're kind of seeing, okay, well, this is the pattern here, but we're seeing overall like appreciation, and we're seeing the interest and the community behind these coins. They're not just going to disappear. They'll be more willing to accept coins and stuff like Doge. And I really just believe, because if we look at what happened in the last market and overall here, we've seen so many things that have happened. So many, look at how many brokerages. Let's not forget how many brokerages don't exist anymore. How many of them were going, bankrupt and being acquired, FTX, and, stopping withdrawals, and all these coins that popped up that have vanished. So it's from a business perspective, we have to kind of look at that and say, okay, how is this going to play into the next bull run as far as for utility with crypto? Because we've seen so much corruption and BS in the market over the last few years that from a business standpoint, they have to be very careful before they intertwine themselves financially by accepting these crypto. So that is going to play a big part in the revenue coming in for the next bull run. And I think that ultimately that's where utility, obviously having leaders and stuff like Elon with Doge, that's going to play a big part as well. Any new developments, but those are some of the things that we're going to have to kind of focus on as a community and say, okay, well, what are the projections based off of the utility we have now, utility that we can get, any new projects and stuff like that, as far as from Elon, and supply and demand. That's going to be the biggest issues there. So I think that if we look at it and say, okay, well, yes, demand always increases when in a bull market, because obviously there's an opportunity to make money. Nobody kind of, I know not even people, but it's a better practice to invest when things are kind of flat, kind of like right now. But we all know that right now, if it's around 5, 6 cent, Bitcoin, if it's 25K, there's going to be less people, and trending sideways, there's going to be less people interested than if Doge was on a run from 6 cent to 20 cent and Bitcoin was headed toward 100,000. There's just going to be a difference in interest, and more people are going to be interested as far as for buying in. But as far as for maintaining and hitting those levels, as you guys know, if you've been following my channel, I look for sustainability and ways to build out the coin so that they can, have pretty much just ascend to new heights over different cycles and not just depend completely off of hype and news and stuff like that. Otherwise, it's just going to be these roller coasters. Crypto is volatile as it is already, so we don't necessarily need to completely trade FOMO and hype, but we know how the cycles go. So it's just something to kind of keep in mind for the next bull run. With that being said, more than likely, we'll see the beginning of it in 2024. I'm just kind of giving you a time frame, but as far as for hitting some real numbers, not real numbers, as far as hitting some higher numbers or potential all-time highs, that's looking like 2025. But positioning yourself, and I know a lot of times people are saying that, oh, okay, I expected a return by now, and they're being patient and stuff. It really comes down to timing and patience, because some of these gains, yes, it can seem like it's slow, but if you're in the right position, these gains and stuff you can get by waiting a few years. And in crypto, it could have taken you a decade or so to get with the S&P. So just simply by being patient. And just remember, most times people do make decent investments. They just don't have the patience to kind of see it through. And they typically just trade or jump out, and they'll end up missing out on their gains because they're looking for the next best thing, and also the next fastest thing, right? Because even if they're in a good thing, if it's not moving fast enough, they'll typically jump ship. So just kind of keep that in mind as far as what we're looking at for the next bull run time frame, those prices and stuff. Typically speaking, the bull runs lead to new all-time highs. And again, we just have to ensure that we're looking at the metrics and stuff like that. For Bitcoin, obviously, scarcity is what's going to drive that price. We know the halving in April, that typically takes care of the supply and demand issue. The supply and demand for Ethereum, typically it trades like, even though it's on, like I said, blockchain, but it has like the utility, and that kind of helps with the supply and demand perspective. But also, again, pretty much people who invest in Bitcoin, they typically diversify in Ethereum as well. So, and I believe that's why it almost mirror traces Bitcoin on its movements. Doge, again, we're going to have to look at utility and supply and demand here, and not necessarily replicate what happened in 2020, but keep in mind that that plays a big part in the development. So as far as for getting the new utility and also having some of those new projects comes out, because Doge has an unlimited supply, that's going to play a big part in the rise of Doge in this next cycle. Looking at prices here, what we talked about in the last video, we because we were saying that the price was weakening based off of the candle, so we're going to have a break, and this looks like we're getting the break to the upside. We're at around 27,000, coming from the 14 to the 72. Looks like some slight pushback from the 72. This is a daily candle, so we'll see where it closes. But this is what I meant by, as far as for breaking out of that, kind of like that sideways trajectory. So what we're looking at here is a move to the high 27s, possibly closing above 27.72 to kind of break out of that. Obviously, on the downside, it would be somewhere around 25,155. But as of right now, it's looking like it's more likely that we'll get that extra $600 to the upside, or just retest some of these levels up here. It could be the 72, could be the 200, which is right slightly above that previous rejection, or the previous closing at around 875. So just be looking for that over the next 48, 72 hours. That's 600 to $700 in Bitcoin. And we'll be definitely be in a retest range for kind of breaking out of this sideways trajectory. Let's look at Doge. Yeah, same thing, above the 14, kind of sitting on the 14 now, still in that sideways trajectory. but certainly above the 596, and we're below the 656. So need pretty much like another half a penny or so to kind of retest some of those levels. And that's relatively close to what we'd be looking at with the 72. 200 days resting right on the 709. So yeah, so definitely if we get that break, we'll certainly break out of that trajectory here. We have some low down here in the mid sixes. So that's another 20th of a cent to break out above that. So yeah, it's a little tighter with Doge as far as for where we're resting at on the support here, but it's looking like we're establishing some new one on the 14. So I would say if we're looking at the 14 here, just kind of look for, if we're looking at the 600 to 700 roughly with Bitcoin, we'll be looking for around 644 with Doge. So that's going to be where we'll be looking at to kind of do some of those retests since we're actually sitting on top of the 14. So that's what I'd be looking at. I take a look here, but I know based off price movement, shorts are probably non-existent. They're probably just hanging out. Yeah. So nothing crazy going on here just yet. We know they will respond. So yeah, just kind of be prepared for that as well. And Bitcoin as well. And Bitcoin too. When we start seeing some of these higher prices, and as the bull market starts, you start trying to see people start calling the top immediately and start jumping into short positions. So just kind of keep in mind of that. Don't forget that is how they play the game. The same way people want to ride the wave up, there are people here who simply just want to ride the wave down. So well, all in all, I'm going to say we are in for an historic run yet again, because I do believe we're going to have another record amount of retail investors in the market compared to institutions. We're set to break six figures with Bitcoin. And the big question is the $1 million question, the $1 billion question is, what does six-figure Bitcoin look like for the rest of the crypto market? What cryptos are still going to be in the top 10, and what cryptos are going to cease to exist? This is all going to play huge roles in the future of the crypto market. And I believe we're going to have the answers to a lot of those questions in this next bull run. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I appreciate all of you, and I will see you guys in the next video.